Hey everyone, welcome to Tea with Thomas. This is Kason Ilakata.
This is Aaron George.
And we are here in Chicago at the St. Mary's Syro-Monitor Catholic Church.
And you might be wondering, what are Kason and I doing here? Just sitting here, talking to you guys, talking about, just having a weird intro session with this episode. Basically, what we're trying to explain is that we're doing an episode in person because we found some time to come over for a weekend and meet up with some of our mentors, Binu Chachin, as well as, of course, Father Jerry, and just really reflect on our time here at Tea with Thomas. Just on the podcast, this journey's been nothing short of amazing. And at the same time, we found some time to record an episode specifically talking about leadership within MCYM as well as what leadership looks like post MCYM. So we hope that you guys enjoy and take some time to really listen in on this podcast. Please let us know if you guys have any questions and comments. And as always, hope you enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tea with Thomas. As you can see, Kason and I are in another different location. And fun fact, we are here in person. So, hi, Kason.
Hi. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
And yeah, we are very excited to be here. And of course, we kind of have to explain what's going on here. But I want to invite and get to introduce a little bit of our guests around here. Usually we only have one or two guests, but today we're fortunate with not one, not two, but four guests here on this episode. So can we go maybe one by one?
My name is Tom Bilal. I've been part of this church as long as I can remember. I know we were initially a mission when we started out. I believe we got our church in 1995. But I'm married. Our wife is Smitha Bilal, and then I have 3 children. I work as a product consultant for Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've been doing that for a little over a year. Various roles that I've had since coming up through the church. I was the second MCYM president here. Been on the parish council for now, I think 15 years running. Been the trustee 3 different times, and I'm just finishing up my 3rd term. I've also done Sunday school for many years. So more or less just always trying a different way to contribute. So it's about me.
Hi, I'm Elisa Chandrabose. I grew up in the Chicago church pretty much my whole life, from when we used to have mass at people's homes to then being able to rent out different local Chicago parishes, and then finally getting our own church here in Evanston. I am married to a fellow Malankara from the Houston community, Vincent Chandrabose. We have a daughter, Leia, and I work as a senior director for a pediatric hospital here in Chicago, and I oversee all of the outpatient clinics for that hospital. And then at this church, I, from even growing up in the church, just coordinating like ecumenical programs, different dances for all of the different events that we had, to being the MCYM president. I think it was probably a total of 5 or 6 years being in that role, which I think this was before they put a limit on it. And then being a part of parish council for a number of years, also being the representative for the assembly, for the ecumenical. I think also Sunday school teacher, and currently substitute Sunday school teacher. So.
Hey everybody, my name is Lijo Joseph. I like to say I grew up in the church, but I came to church under unusual circumstances. I came at the age of 13 actually when I started coming here. But yeah, since I've been here, different roles. I'm a father of 6, and my wife's grown to love the Malankara liturgy, having coming from Syro Malabar, right? So currently I work in legal operations, managing a lot of the legal applications at Abbott. And I like to say, I've been in different roles here, but predominantly just kind of helping out with the choir. Just
very good choir, by the way. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of being able to see how I can help, bring out the young generation, and to also loving our liturgy more, right? So, so yeah, that's in a nutshell. Feels like I've grew up in this church, but it's been a beautiful journey so far.
My name is Jason Daniel. I think my family and we started coming here regularly in I think 1988, 1989. Prior to that, I think we would come periodically for like special events. I think like your brother's communion, those kind of things. But I think it was in 1988 or 9 we started coming regularly. I'm 45 years old. I work in radiology. The specific field is called nuclear medicine. A lot of it is just kind of diagnostic imaging, mostly like screening, like cancer patients, those kind of things. My involvement in church, I think I was there in the beginning when I think before MCYM started here, like our initial youth group, those kind of things. I was there in the beginning with everyone else. And thinking about what to say, I was thinking about, I think I might have been the first like youth principal of Sunday school, like in a previous lifetime, I think in the early mid 2000s or something. And since then, I've always been involved with like catechism. I'm currently a Sunday school teacher, and I'm part of the choir with Lujo.
Awesome. So, just to break the ice a little bit, I just want to play a small activity with all of you. We're going to actually do a raise of hands, actually. So, I'm going to ask a question, and after I ask the question, you guys raise your hand, and we'll kind of discuss a little bit about that, okay? First is, who here is a Chicago native? Okay, all four of you. All right. So native.
Yeah.
So you guys were brought up or born and brought up? Then I'm assuming. Go ahead.
So I was actually, that's why I said define native. Because
He was here on asylum.
Yeah, I was actually born in UAE, Pajara.
Oh, okay.
Came here when I was 5.
Okay.
But pretty much grew up in the Chicagoland area.
We call that native. Right. I'll call that native. Yes. Okay, perfect. Who here has found their significant other in MCYM?
It wasn't actually through MCYM.
Okay.
It was, it sounds like a start of a bad joke. It was actually a Malangara priest and my brother who actually introduced us. So at an MCYM gathering, actually, it was Father Jacob Tekambarambil was teaching us Syriac, and that's really how I got exposed to meeting somebody through the Malangara Church, because he happens to be my husband's uncle. So.
Wow. Okay. So there's definitely variety in terms of how people met each other and things like that, right? And yeah. Do you have something to add, Chachin? We're good? Okay. I'll go move to the next one. So I think I put this down here, and I'm kind of scared to ask this question, but who thinks deep dish is overrated?
Oh, okay.
To me, I think it's just a thing to do. It's not, like, to me, if you enjoy pizza, the thin crust is probably the better. So
I like thin crust. It's underrated, I would say.
I'm not going to make opinions because I want to be respectful to our viewers.
I mean, we were here for this weekend, and we got to try Giordano's and Illuminati. Illuminati. Yes, all right. Illuminati. I really like Illuminati's a lot. I think that takes the cake.
he liked the butter crust.
That and the honey, the hot honey.
They have a hot honey pizza.
Yeah, that was very good.
I recommend you try that one. That one's amazing flavor.
That was the only one I was eating. Most of the rest, yeah.
We do more than deep dish, though. So I don't agree that it's not, like, it is worth it to actually try it.
Right.
But Chicago is also just known for their pizza in general.
Yeah,
And
okay.
definitely the best pizza
Oh,
anywhere.
New York.
We need to move on to the next question.
Got it.
Let's keep moving on.
So, thankfully, Jerry Etchen is not in the room with us right now, but I want to ask this question. Who here has fallen asleep at Jerry Etchen's homilies? No, good. That's good. See, attentive.
So everyone,
He's been really good about, like, the way that he makes the connection, and the fact that he goes between English and Malayalam. It's very seamless.
I did notice that today.
Yeah.
It was really beautiful actually being able to. I think for me, because Malayalam isn't still my strongest language, I appreciated him saying it in English and then immediately switching it in Malayalam as well. And I was like, oh, that's what some of those Malayalam words mean. There you go, right? So
It definitely takes skill, as well as he's able to relate at a very personal level. I mean, that's why we have him on our show, because he's able to connect with the audience at a deeper level, and he connects with us, right? The bonds that we have. So his homies are amazing.
Yeah, and he always starts out with the question that kind of
right.
to capture the audience,
Capture the
right?
audience.
Then you're like, oh, that's why he asked that question. So he knows how to.
His
deliver it.
psychology major is coming use.
Jerry Etchen, I think you're doing a good job. So good job. Yeah, I think that was good answers, everyone. I appreciated that. That was good. Now I figure we'll probably try to get into the meat of the questions. That wasn't really a good pizza pun, but maybe. I don't know. Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, so yeah. So what I'm really trying to do here is, or what we're trying to do is, we wanted to come to Chicago and really talk to people who've had the experience of growing in faith through the church itself. It's a special moment to be able to sit with others who've have different, like different perspectives, and at the same time, being able to share those perspectives while understanding we're all belonging in this Mullingar church, right? So I think it's important to kind of highlight your perspectives and at the same time share that with others so people can kind of understand, maybe some of the things that we're going through right now isn't that far different from what's happened before. So I think it's important to kind of share these stories, and we're probably going to try and approach this through almost a chronological order. So we'll kind of start off. Lejo Chachin, you kind of talked about like when you were younger, right? You weren't from this area, like exactly born here, right? But you would call yourself a native, right? Like, a Chicagoan, as I assume that's the word for it. So just to start off with wanted to ask everyone here, how was it really growing in the church, right? At the young ages, as y'all were forming in your, in your faith and in your identity itself as, a Mullingar Catholic or as a Catholic, how was it? Was it a welcoming environment? How did you feel as you were growing up in the faith? We'll start off right to left. Yeah.
I think I think when we were younger, or when I was younger, the not in a bad sense, but maybe the faith aspect wasn't there. It's just more coming to church and you get to see these friends or that friends, and maybe service Kurbana was something you just got through, so that way we can all go to the Angel Guardian Hall and have donuts and coffee, right, with everyone. So I think at a younger age, that's what it is. That being said, I think none of the spirituality or the faith or the importance of the faith wasn't lost on us. I think everyone's parents, like back then, there was no eparchy, there was no like Sunday school national director. It was just everybody's parents doing the best they can to instill like the faith and what the liturgy and the culture was, right? So it wasn't lost on us, but I think at least for me in the beginning, it wasn't necessarily about, I'm coming here because I love the liturgy and this rich. I think all those things came later, and I think that's probably, I'm not meaning to overspeak, but maybe for everyone, as we get older, then we start facing challenges like in high school or college, and then those are the kind of things I think that kind of push you towards, what is this all about? What am I doing? Like, who's with me? Who's not with me? So I think that's where like the kind of like the faith dimension or your personal spirituality grows, and then you realize, oh wow, I don't need to go and look for it somewhere else. I was in it all along. I just needed to like kind of look around or open my eyes.
You had the gem was literally in front of your eyes all this time, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely is.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's there. You just have to realize that it's there, or open your eyes, or maybe it was too bright for you to see, and then maybe it had to be dimmed a little bit or something like that.
I'll try to not make this a long-winded answer, but as I mentioned earlier, I had just an unusual journey. So at the age of, I grew up Marthama, right? So at age 4, my dad My dad passed away with brain tumor. Then my mom, when she remarried, she married a Syro Malabar gentleman, right? And it came time for my youngest sister to have her baptism, and it turned out that the priest was not around, the Syro Malabar priest, so we had to find another place to have her birthday celebration and her baptism on the same day. So we heard about this small little, community, Molenka community. So we just showed up there, had our baptism, and then since that point, we kind of just went back and forth between Syro Malabar and Syro Molenka. But kind of like how you mentioned, Aaron, is like it was just the community feel was different, right? Because Syro Malabar is a huge parish, especially here in Chicago. So many families, you feel like a small little ant, so when you come to church, but when you're coming to the Syro Malabar community, it's just more welcoming, and you feel like, hey, I can actually probably be part of this. So that's what kind of drew me here early on at the age of 13, right? So I got a chance of, understand the liturgy and really understand what it felt like to be part of the Molenka community.
Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, I think for our experience and, Tom's family, our family, there was probably like 5 or 6 families that outside of the church, we were also family friends. And so I think part of that, Jason's family and us, like our dads go way back, even from India. And so I think for us, there was also the familial, just kind of it already felt like a family just because of our friends and the relationships we had developed over the years of growing up together. But then coming to the church community, it was nice to have that, because then you already felt like your brother or your sister was already at this church community with you. And then meeting new families, like when Lijo's family started coming to church, when many of the other families started coming to our church, it just felt like new people were being added to our family. And I think that family feel, and for many of us, family is so critical, so important, that it felt natural. And I think having a smaller church community allows for that love to kind of be shared in a smaller group. And then again, kind of going back to what Jid was saying, like, I think it's really important that our parents really instilled a lot of those values in all of us, to find the value of the Mass and to understand the sacredness of our liturgy, and really uncover a lot of the things that we didn't know as young kids. And so that I think that kind of remained in us and kind of stayed in our hearts as we grew older. I think that's another reason why so many of us continue to be a part of this parish and also want to raise our children in that environment as well. Even though things change over the years, I think our heart is still here, and our heart is with one another, and our heart is in this church. So.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of Lisa here. So, I mean, I think one thing that we're really struggling now is with the way that the world is now. Everybody's glued to the phone. So when we were growing up, we didn't have phones. And the only way we could really contact each other is if we saw each other. So if we knew that, hey, Lee, Ben, Lidge, Jay, they're going to be at church Sunday, I want to go to church because I want to be hanging out with them. So yeah, I think the group consensus, yeah, maybe it wasn't necessarily spiritual when we were younger, but because we were all together and we were all around the same age, and like, hey, there's this conference, let's all go because we all want to go together and we want to have that experience together. We did it like that, and I feel like because we had that, I think maybe what we're seeing at different parts of the country was we were insulated because we had each other, so we didn't necessarily get as tempted as others would, right? Because we were always looking out for each other. If she wasn't there, we'd be like, hey, Lee, what happened to you? Or you don't have a ride, we'll come get you, right? It was never a question of not, like, the question is like, it would be more of a concern if somebody was missing. So I felt like that was like, that base kind of helped us all grow in our faith and grow into the church.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, our sister church here, Syro Malabar, is much bigger than ours. So when we used to come together as a group and come to places like at Syro or other places together, people can see that and they can feel that sense of unity, that community that we would bring, right? Like, because all of us are around the same age, and just because just like how Tom said, we like to kind of be around each other. And that's something that's becomes kind of contagious, or that others kind of get that feel from that, so that was pretty, it was visible to others too.
You guys created that welcoming environment, and you guys basically, that friendship that you guys talked about started really developing at this time, right? You said if someone was missing, you really feel it, right? That's the church feels that, right? It's like the heartbeat, like something changes then, right? That's a very good point, because I really want to ask, because you guys kind of hinted at your growth in the church. Then the involvement process, right, is something I really want to learn about. Because so that's the question I have for you guys is, how did you get started to get involved in the church, and how did that involvement really shape your life into MCYM and even a little bit after that?
So I think for me, the first real involvement, maybe officially, might have been through catechism. I think I had mentioned earlier, like being like in charge of Sunday school, or being like at the head of that. So prior to that, I had years of experience of being like a Sunday school teacher. So the principals at the time, they asked, me to participate. So at some point, I transitioned into that. I forgot I did it for a few years. And then, my term was up, I guess. So they elected someone else, so they chose someone else. So for me, that was like my involvement. And I think we had choir back then too, right? Yeah. Yeah. So for me, that was kind of like the moving into like actively participating like in the church.
I want to add something to what Chachin said right there. I feel like a lot of people in our church these days feel like involvement requires a position, right? And I guess in my heart, that like gives me a lot of heartache, because it really becomes almost like a status symbol in which we have to fight for specific positions to feel like we take a matter in this church. And Chachin, you highlighted it best, because at the end of it, you were like, I still was able to participate in choir and participate because people asked you to, right? To come in and be involved, right? So I'm hoping our listeners as well are able to understand that these Chachins and Chechis, even at a young age, right, they saw that involvement as, being there. We talked about that earlier with, showing up, right? It was more of a worry when you weren't there.
But to add to that, and then to kind of add on to what Tom and Lisa were talking about, we were insulated from what goes on in other parishes, but I feel like when we were participating in like the church activities and the church logistics here, I think maybe our culture here was a little bit different. We kind of we helped each other out, right? Like, okay, fine, you're Sunday school principal, but that doesn't mean you go and organize and do everything. You could ask youth group or MCYM or the younger kids, like you were talking about dances. Yeah, maybe all the kids were in Sunday school and I was in charge, but then you guys are arranging like the dances or something, right? There would be like Easter egg guns. I'm not arranging that. Someone else is doing that, and we're doing it because we want to do that. It's the goodness that's in us. Okay, they're doing this, so if they ask me to do this, or I can, be involved, it wasn't not necessarily like, okay, yeah, you just go ahead and do it. Like, it's not my issue. So I think, when it comes to being involved, it could be, those kind of circumstances where it's like, yeah, you're looking for a position, or they're looking for a position. What's like the consequences of that, right? Whereas I think the consequences here were different, just because we all kind of look, like how Tom said, we're all looking out for each other. We'll help each other out. Something doesn't, if it works out great, we all are happy for it. If it doesn't, then we'll all just move forward. Those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think having positions, it can be good and bad, right? Like, because people want to ask you like, who put you in charge? Whether it be the choir. But the thing is, from the beginning, we didn't really care for all that positions, right? We did it because, like Jason said, like the goodness of our heart, because we wanted to kind of give back and kind of see how we can kind of contribute to the church in some way, right? And then we would all just kind of come together and help each other too with it. So for me, it was like, I had been initially in the Marthoma Church. I've been part of choir early on, so music has always kind of been my kind of area that I was passionate about. So for me, it was like, how do I bring that passion and kind of, be part of the choir here and kind of, you know, let others experience this beautiful liturgy that we have, right? And then I think it was like early college years, but then when we were in our 20s, we used to bring all kinds of instruments because no one really knew, like, we didn't know what it was supposed to sound like. And we had a priest at the time that was kind of open to that. So you imagine having like tambourines and maracas and all kinds of, in a monochromatic mass. It was, you think back and you're like, how can Achan let us do that? Because it's just, thinking back, it just sounds like bizarre and just would have sounded weird today if we were to do that. But I mean, having that freedom and then us all come together to kind of experience or let others experience that beauty. I think that's what it was about. So for me, it was like early on to now, I just love kind of just being part of the choir and kind of help some of our younger generations kind of be able to express themselves through the choir and through music,
I think in the very early stages, it wasn't necessarily that we were asked or we were elected to do anything. We had to do it because there was nobody else to do it too. That was another part of it, that there really wasn't anybody else that could take that up. So it was our responsibility to do those types of things. And I think in a lot of ways, and we stressed out in a lot of ways too, trying to organize it and do these things. But I agree with Lijo, like, because we had the freedom and our Achans were very supportive of us learning and really trying to develop our church community and really understand how to get the kids more engaged, it was actually instrumental to our growth. And I think, a couple of times you're kind of forced to, you have to do it. And then later you become like, you have a sense of obligation, like, this is the right thing to do. This is what I need to do in order for our church to flourish. And so even like, we were in choir for many, many years. It's not that any of us were professional singers, but who else is going to sing and help to lead the liturgy? And so that was always another thing that I appreciated about our church, is you didn't have to be a professional dancer to be on the ecumenical dances. You didn't have to be a professional singer to sing in the choir. You didn't have to be, the best speech person to talk. Yeah, you did. The Lord made you capable to do these things, so you do to the best of your ability, and then you carry along and you try to do that to the fullest. And so I think that was the other thing that I really appreciated about our church community. And I see this in other church communities where people are, they long for the position or they long for the title. I don't necessarily think any of us actually long for the title, but we have that sense of obligation and kind of that accountability to hold one another accountable to those things, but also just being able to do it. And one other thing I want to say is, we didn't start off with it being necessarily faith driven, because a lot of it was we had to do it to make it happen. But as the faith became more and more instrumental, and as we had more exposure to like how the Lord works in our lives, I definitely think the Holy Spirit carried us through so many years of being able to do things and be successful, because it wasn't our own doing or our own abilities. It was well beyond us. And so I do think by the grace of God, we were able to do those things.
I just want to add something really quick. It reminds me of the quote, God doesn't call the qualified, but qualifies the called, right?
Yep.
You guys are walking definition of that. God bestowed graces upon you to fulfill the work of his church. That's why we have this beautiful church here. Like, when I first came to Chicago, like, I was just blown. I'm like, kind of got teary because I wish we had something like this in San Jose or something. But hopefully, pray for us. Yeah. I hope more people like this rise up in our area and kind of take on responsibilities, because positions are not end all be all, right? Those are just, of course, for logistic purposes. But yeah, God calls the unqualified and he makes them qualified, right? Because his will is great. So thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, Lisa said it beautifully, but so that had two different trains of thoughts here. So one of the things when we're talking about the position versus non-position, I know growing up we had to all be National Honor Society, so you needed 40 hours. So I thought I could, I talked to Archie and I'm like, Archie, I need 40 hours. So he's like, start cleaning. So I mean, it's funny how it started that way. So I had to come here a few different Saturdays, do the cleaning. But then after a while, I realized, hey, this needs to be done. So I remember I asked Jay. Jay came one time, and then I asked a bunch of other different people to come, and we just would do it. And it wasn't like 20, 30 people. It was like 3 or 4 people, and you're doing the cleaning, but then you're really you're adding that connection, right? So I got to know Jay a little bit deeper there. And then so that kind of like, I guess I felt like for me, that kind of started the whole service mentality toward the church. So it's not like, hey, I'm coming to church because I need to get this. No, hey, the church need this. What can I do? Right. So that was one thing right there. And then the other thing was sports, right? So when we first started, like I said, we weren't as deep in the faith, but sports was something that we all wanted to be, and we wanted to kill all the different churches, and for sure, right? But then we would practice, and we got to, even after a full Sunday school, full mass, we would then eat lunch, and then we'd go play ball for 2, 3 hours, and then to make sure that we did well in the tournament. So I felt like that also got everybody together. The last thing was, so I just was giving the annual report for the church as a trustee, and there was so much arguing related to, we need to do this, we need to do that, this costs this much money, what are we going to do? And like, I was compelled, like, even though I didn't have anything in mind there, but when that came up, it was just like, you don't contribute with just money. You can contribute in different ways. You can say, hey, if the church needs to do something, can I go in there? If there's a church needs some work, maybe a contractor or somebody that can do something, or like, there's different ways to contribute. And I think people are fixated, like, well, this person gave $1,000. I don't have $1,000 to do, so that person's better than me. No, there's the Lord calls us all in different ways. And that's what we need to do. It's just a matter of us being open to it, and when we get that nudge, to actually do something about it, as opposed to just letting it sit there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's really touching that when I'm hearing each of y'all talk about your topics, you also just don't talk about the roles and the church as a whole, but you also talk about specific people and the way that your friendships and your relationships also blossomed through this. Right, this whole thing, like our church life, like not just in terms of people, but also like families coming together, like this whole community growing as one. It involves the people around you, right? Actually investing in the people around you, continue to connect with them. So we have a question here that talks about like how were your friendships growing, right, through these different functions and events. But I kind of want to shift that question a little bit to our next question, which specifically talks about MCYM and how MCYM played a part in your upbringing. And I know we had kind of talked about like, at some point, like there wasn't an MCYM, right? So I wanted to see like if one of y'all would be willing to kind of share about that part. Like, how was MCYM formed or created here? And how was the friendships and bonds formed until then? And then at that point, if someone else wants to talk about like then when MCYM was formed, how were the activities, right? Because a big part of MCYM is just like, when people think about MCYM, it's just like the events, right? And it's like, what did you do in MCYM kind of thing, right? So if someone wants to volunteer to kind of just start talking about
The early years, so we didn't really have MCYM. I know her older sister was the first president, and at that point, it was really just, hey, somebody said something from New York. Hey, they want to go ahead and push this to our church. So she was basically the main communication, or she was the main way to communicate those initiatives. By the time I got in there, it was really trying to start getting more formulated in terms of having a group, and then getting a little bit more, I wouldn't say event focused, but at least some kind of structure in place. But it really wasn't, I mean, compared to like right now, we have like 5 to 6 people on a board for each local. It was just one person at that time. So, yeah, I don't think it was like, I kind of felt like we had that group, even if it wasn't necessarily under the name of MCYM. We were already kind of doing that on our own, whether that was doing, we would do like volunteering stuff at like soup kitchens, and we would even just hang out, right? There wasn't any formal thing that we would do. We just go do something or go to a retreat. I think the fire retreat was one of the ones that we all went to. But I mean, once it got formed, I don't know from there.
Yeah, I was actually, and I appreciate that Tom had a nod to the generation that was before us, because they were really, like my sister's generation was kind of the first generation to grow up in America and, come from immigrant families. And there was a handful of them that really didn't have too much of anything as an example, right? Because our parents were figuring out living in this country and living in America. It was far too difficult to then try to coordinate MCYM or those types of things. And so I think for my sister's generation, like all the older kids that are even, or now adults that are older than us, it was quite a challenge for them because they didn't have anybody to even kind of bounce ideas off of or learn from. And so it was brand new for that generation. And I think they did an awesome job in what they were able to do and what they were capable of doing at that time. And I actually still, even to this day, appreciate that it was that generation that also brought kind of more of the faith life to this community too. And so as much as we're on this panel, we really appreciate all of the things for our parents and the generation even above us that were able to make those contributions to the formation of our MCYM. And I think also the way that our MCYM continued to evolve, as we started to get more involved in the church and do more things, I think it was more of a natural progression of what can we didn't even call ourselves a youth group, but what can we do just being like the youth of this church do to help organize more events, do service events, help out with the church, clean whenever we can possibly do, any kind of Easter or Christmas celebration, what can we do to make it more meaningful? And then I also think the more we did get involved, and I know like my brother also started becoming more involved, like at a national level and other ways, we were able to then get a glimpse of like what is happening in other churches and what's happening in more established spaces, and could we potentially learn from them. So I think it was kind of a combination of all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, because we're like a smaller community, we kind of had a rotation. Someone had we all got a chance to be in leadership roles through MCYM. We had elder brothers and sisters who kind of paved the path and kind of made it in a way it's more organized, through the years. But I mean, I would say like one of the things that was kind of life changing for us, our community, was our youth group, like especially our generation, like our age group. We would come together and we'd pray. Just come together and just come sit, just pray for different intentions. Just spend time together, just to kind of and this is, if you think about it now, I mean, obviously we got little kids now, so it's a little bit different. But at that time, I mean, I guess it was probably a little bit easier, just to come together and just really just share with each other what's going on, challenges, pray for each other, read some scripture. Like it was beautiful, like and I think there's talk that we're trying to restart that again. Yeah, so I mean, that's hopefully that helps the next generation. Maybe they can start that themselves, even through MCYM. It doesn't have to be a formal gathering, but
Yeah, I wanted to hear about what was that thing happening next week? What's going on?
No, exactly what Lijo's alluding to. Actually, Anjita was supposed to be on the panel with us, but Anjita and I are talking about potentially bringing kind of that, or actually not potentially, bringing it back so that all of us as young adults and now older adults could come together just to pray. I think life kind of takes us all in different directions, and many of us have, grown in different ways, whether it's in our faith life or if it's in our family lives or just in adulting and how you have to live your life now, that we do, I think, recognize that foundation of prayer and faith is imperative for us to continue to move forward. And I think in a lot of ways, our relationships, I mean, I feel like we all grew up together, and I think we feel like we're all very like a family, right? But in the same token, like even families argue, they fight, they are honest. We're not perfect. Like if we have an issue, we're going to address it to one another and say, how many times has he yelled at me? 100 million times. And it's totally fine, because the next day I know that he's doing that for me to be a better person. Or, if Lijo and I argue about something, okay, we'll squash it the next Sunday and we move on from that. But I think as we get older and as we have other issues and other things that happen in our lives, I think it then we don't want it to change that dynamic of that family feel. And we really feel like if we can bring it back to kind of that prayer life, that foundation of faith, that we'll be able to kind of continue to grow, and not just to benefit us or our children, but to benefit for future years to come, and hopefully learn from continuing to obviously grow in our faith and grow in understanding one another in a different capacity. So we're starting that next week.
Yeah, so I feel like even before things formally became like MCYM, like what was it, like the late 90s, early 2000s, we called it youth group. So I think while Sunday school was from like what 9:30 to 10:30 or 10:20, right? So I would go for that, but then I think all of these guys would come and they would have praise and worship and like what Lydia was saying, like praying and stuff. I don't know, I look back on that now as like kind of laying the groundwork for things, right? Yeah, because you come together and you pray together, and then there's a practical aspect too. You got to plan things. What are we doing next Sunday? Or what are we going to talk about? Maybe we're going to do this or we're going to do that. So I think those kind of things, they lay the groundwork. And then some of the other things too, we talked about, like you take on some responsibility and who's there to who's there with you or whatever, right? It's like those things like prayers that are shared and songs that are sung together, right? Or struggles that are shared. Then whatever it might be, like I have to, I'm teaching a class, or we're doing choir together, right? Or you're talking about sports, right? You and all your brothers, you're lining up ready to go and do battle with somebody, or you're talking about like performing, like you and all your sisters, you guys, okay, let's get ready and go and kill it out there, right? Those kind of things. That's like even not to take it outside of like our Catholic perspective, that's like a human experience, right? When we do things together, struggles shared or spirituality shared, I think that laid the groundwork for for the things that were to come, and what we're talking about here today.
Each of y'all have kind of touched on specific like events or memories that you guys specifically remember. So if you could take like maybe like a quick 30 seconds each of y'all, what is like your top memory, like either MCYM or pre-MCYM, like that you distinctly remember that like you feel like you from your heart you need to share it with the public audience? Maybe something embarrassing as well. It's okay. It's the internet. It's forever. We need to capture it.
I think a pivotal moment for me personally, and I felt it with all of the guys up here, and then also my fellow brothers and sisters, was we, as the Chicago church, hosted the first leadership retreat in 2004. I have to look to Binu for all the dates. 2004. And I think that really shaped so many of us in our faith, in how we really took the seriousness of like growing the church and really trying to develop ourselves within the church and as leaders of the church, but then also to help others have the same and to grow together. And we got to meet people from all the other churches, and it was just awesome because they were like-minded brothers and sisters from all over the country and even Canada. And I just felt like it was really beautiful to like all come together in that space. And I won't ever forget that we did a skit, and it was to this Evanescence song. And I don't know if it was just like all the emotions coming down, or if it was truly just the Holy Spirit working through us, but I felt like that was a really pivotal moment for us as a youth group, as a MCYM, and just as brothers and sisters to just really come together. And in that moment, it just felt so beautiful to be around all of the brothers and sisters at a national level and experience that together. And it was, for me, that was something that I don't think I'll ever forget, that moment.
I can go. So I don't think it was specifically related back to the church, but it was our youth group going to the Fire Charismatic Retreat. And in that sense, I mean, without going into too many details, we knew that everybody going into that, they had different things that were heavy on their hearts. And I think the mentality of going in there, at least for myself, was just being open to it, knowing that, hey, there's stuff that's going and you got to figure out how to get through it, and you don't know how to get through it. And then number one, you have everybody here that you're seeing on a Sunday going to get the same thing that you're looking for. Now, granted, the answers are all going to be different, but we all got answers, and you could literally, I just remember seeing everybody's faces and they look completely different from the first day that we came on. And then I think that was kind of like a springboard, because I think right after that, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but there was so many other things that came because you got that, whatever healing you got from that retreat. It boiled into the next few things that we did, and it was like we were on fire for like the next year or two.
I always go back to the choir in the back, with with all the maracas and the tambourines, and so we used to have like little bongo drums even, so, and then also I didn't know how to play tabla, but I would just hit it like a drum. But you imagine just like traditional Malankara people in the congregation, they're hearing that, like, this is nowhere like how it was in India, and it's like, but that was just, I think that was around the time, I think probably before the leadership retreat, then we kind of got some senses and realized. But anyways, that was the start of something like that. That was now we're in the choirs in the front. It's a different. It's almost like we're kind of making progress. But
Next to the butler.
but I mean, like, it's just like, it's just beautiful to see how things kind of just over the years, things kind of change and we adapt. Evolved, exactly. I think that's the word I was thinking, but and you have to kind of evolve with the times, right? And then kind of figure out, like, even the younger generation, how things are different, they're different. How do we kind of evolve but also keep the faith and liturgy intact, right? Like, how do we kind of just evolve, but all at the same time, like, especially being in this country, right? Like, how is it going to look like 5-10 years from now? How do we also incorporate those coming from India? But we can't just say, oh, we're in America, we just have English Grabono, and that's it, right? But so we have to kind of figure out what that healthy balance is, but also including everybody, right? So I think that was, I always look back, how we kind of we had a choir, and it was like the initial phases of the choir, and then trying to include as many people into that. And gonna just bring whatever we can bring to serve.
I just want to add one thing. So I was at Benachachan's house maybe about 6 months ago or so. I was just spending time looking through some old photos, and I saw this photo of this handsome man. It was at this conference. I was like, "Who's that?" It's like, "Oh, that's Lijo Chachan." That's Lijo Chachan. I met this man yesterday, and I saw you there. And you were having a ton of fun. Like, you guys were like. Thankfully, Benachachan does a lot of good job with photographing, videographing, documenting, right? And I was able to, like, he was able to take me through that journey with you guys, just hugging each other and just like do amazing like activities, like what do you call like talks and all that, and just praise and worship, right? And I just want you to talk a little bit more about that leadership, because this year is MCYM NA is hosting its leadership retreat in Chicago. It's made its way back so to Chicago. I mean, there's something special about Chicago. So just tell me a little bit more about the experience that you had in 2004, right?
Yeah, that was a great opportunity. I think we met Ashok there from Philly, and some other, well, maybe from Monker. Yeah, there was convention, but I mean, like, the fact is, we got a chance to kind of do music together. I guess maybe that's what I think about. So, incorporating other people throughout other churches and throughout in the country, and then, like, we're in different leadership roles, so it's like really about figuring out, like, where your place is in, and trying to figure out where your niche is, where you're called to serve. So we're all come with our own baggages, our own struggles and stuff, and it's really just kind of figuring out, like, Lord, we're not perfect, but use us. And it's like, use us in however you feel like you want us to be used, right? Make me an instrument. Yeah. And in many ways, we bought our instruments, right?
Lijo also has a background as a former DJ as
No,
well in his
no,
former
no.
life.
She's lying. She's lying. She's lying.
YouTube link down below.
But yeah, I mean, it's so speaking was never my forte. So, but I knew there's other ways I can, so I can lead. There's certain things everyone comes with different talents, dancing and not my forte once again. But so once again, how do we figure out like what we can bring to serve our Lord and bring others with us. So for that leadership, and I actually got a chance to, I think I met Princey that day too, I think, right? Yeah. So, I mean, other people who are, really talented and kind of work together, in praise and worship and leading others to music and praise.
Yeah, so I think I would probably latch on to like what you were saying. I think maybe keying in on inclusiveness. I can't really think of any like lightning strike moment or eureka moment. I think what it was is when that energy started developing, like, everybody's like, we're starting to do stuff in the church. Let's start organizing the music, or let's do stuff around like cleanup or something like that, or going to like conventions or whatever, right? I think, hey Jay, you want to come along? It's like, yeah, okay. I don't know, like I didn't know any better, right? So I went along, and I think it was like that inclusiveness that kind of pulled me into it, and then you become part of, and then when you're in that environment, that you kind of start soaking some of that up, and then it's like what Lijo said too, like we all bring different things to the table, right? And then I think, at least from what I've experienced here in this community, like we accept each other's like weaknesses and whatever, and things are not ever going to be perfect. Every once in a while you get a little glimpse of, oh wow, that was a really good like day at church, like the music was great, this was great, the homily was great and everything, right? So every once in a while you get a little glimpse of, oh wow, this is what it could be like, but it's never always like that. But then maybe you were talking about, earlier we were talking about like things like positions and all of that thing, like we all have to understand, like, nobody's ever going to function perfectly. Even collectively we don't function perfectly, but we have to accept what everybody does, and then we humanly do what we can, and then everything else is in like God's hands, right? And we accept it, and we praise each other, and then we go on.
Yeah, I think it was really beautiful that each of y'all were able to share something that you were able to kind of reflect on, laugh on, really focus on, and latch on as well. So all of those points, I think, really helped share how just precious and wonderful your youth was, right? Just looking back at it, and just the energy that led you to what I can confidently say now is a life of faith, because I see it in your eyes and the way that you guys celebrate Mass here that we were able to witness as well. It's a beautiful moment. And for me, I'm 25. I'm looking at my time right now in terms of how many years do I have left in MCYM? Because for me, a lot of my faith kind of also revolves around MCYM as well. And it's also a scary thing to kind of reflect on as well, because I mean, sometimes a lot of our identities kind of latch onto the things that we're involved in. And so one of the things that I always think about is, what do I do after MCYM, right? How am I going to give back to my community, to my church, right? To the members of the church specifically, right? Because those are the people that I'm in communion with. It's with each other, and of course with our Lord. So I wanted to ask you guys, as your time in MCYM ended, right? And, you guys talked about, like, you guys are different ages to a degree, but at some points, you guys have moved on from that. I guess, how was that transition like? Were there conversations between y'all on, okay, how do we do this together? Was it more individualistic? Wanted to ask each of y'all kind of how that journey was like.
For me, it was pretty much seamless. I mean, I was already doing stuff in the parish council on different roles, but then it was simply as like 1 year in caroling, I collected all the Christmas carol donations, tracked it. They're like, oh, you know what? You did that pretty well. Maybe you could do the trustee stuff. So then I was the joint trustee for a few years. Then eventually I became the trustee. So like that was one instance, right? And then a lot of the different times there was different initiatives we had together. So I mean, there was at one point we were thinking of potentially moving out of this space and going into another space. So they asked me to put that proposal together, and so just going through that and then doing that, and then people like, oh, he can do that, so then they'd find different reasons to get me involved, right? And I think a lot of us were in charge or helping out with the renovation of this church. Her husband was one of the main point people to be able to put all of this stuff together, because a lot of the times when we did these, it was nobody had any specific expert to help get us through there. But Vincent was really good in getting organized and getting everything per specs, and he brought that to the table, and then we all together were able to communicate. That was one of the things that was troublesome before. We'd want something, but we weren't able to effectively communicate it to the builder or to the different people that would get it. So like when you see this beautiful church, yes, it's a beautiful church, but it really was a lot of different individuals came in here and contributed in different ways, whether it was coming here and ripping out all the demo, or like helping to pick out the materials, or figuring out what everything should be like, or finding different resources. So this was really a community driven project.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit of a shift, because you go from, even when you are not actively involved in, whether it's MCYM or parish council or whatever it is, it does feel different because you're used to being so heavily involved in whatever it might be, even if it's decision making or things like that. And I think it's important that, as you step away from that there's something else that's still allowing you to participate and do things that are going to help you or help the church advance. But it also is good, I think, to allow others the opportunity to also grow, because if we all stayed in these positions or always were consistently the only ones doing this work, then it becomes just our own church and not the church of the community. So I think kind of what Tom was just alluding to about the renovations, like everybody has a part in what could be done to help grow the church and to do things for the betterment of the church. And so I think it's really important, even as you step away, to help guide and help to encourage and teach others how it is helpful to do more work and what they can do to be able to be more involved. I think the other thing is, it's hard when you're not like actively part of community. And I think, having the church and having that community sense and that faith within the church is really critical. I know, like, for many, many years, my brother's family is very involved in Jesus Youth, so we were actually actively involved in Jesus Youth. And I think when life happens, sometimes then you get pulled away from wanting to participate in things. And I think that happened even for me personally, where, I wasn't as involved in Jesus Youth, I wasn't involved in MCYM, I wasn't involved in the church activities. And I noticed such a huge difference when you don't have that involvement, even in your own personal life. And so I think it's really important that there is something that's keeping you grounded, that's keeping you with your eyes on the cross always, and eyes looking towards the Lord, and trying to do more in ways that can help you grow, not only in your faith personally, but to help the church grow. So I think it's something that I'm still learning and trying to kind of get back into and do more in ways that I can, but still a journey for sure.
I think like when you're in MCYM, you talked about it too, like we kind of had to do what we had to do because who else is going to do it, right? But I think as you get out of MCYM, your perspective kind of changes, because now you're not kind of just serving, but you have to start thinking, how is it going to be sustainable for the future? Like, how are you, like, if you're not there in church to help with choir, then who's going to be stepping in to take on that? Who's going to lead the songs? Who's going to, play the piano? Like, so we talk about this kind of things, like, how do we get the next generation to take the step, next step to kind of lead, so how do we bring future leaders in this church? That's where kind of your focus kind of shifts. because at the end of the day, I mean, we're only here for so long. I mean, you got to start thinking about how the church is going to be after our time, right? So one of the biggest things I think, like, as we kind of gotten older, is like now we're part of general body meetings. We can actually stand up and say something. Luckily we're in a church that we don't have too many politics. I mean, we've been fortunate and blessed from that, from our parents and stuff. They kind of brought that kind of culture, and we're trying to carry that too. But I mean, we've been fortunate to be in that situation, right? But we got a chance to kind of stand up and express how we feel about things. And that's how I kind of, we talked about evolving. That's how you evolve into like a different, version of yourself, because now you got, you're one of the, well, not the elders, but you're older, right? And you're the Jardins and Chechis, and now some of the kids even call you uncle. So it's like it's a little bit different nowadays, But all in all, we got a responsibility, and and it's a beautiful thing. But it's the next phase in our life, right, outside of MCYM.
Yeah, I think it's different. Maybe, I don't know if this is the right way of putting it. Maybe the accountability is a little different. When you're an MCYM, maybe the stakes aren't as high. I mean, the stakes are there, right? Versus if I'm the treasurer for MCYM, I'm managing smaller funds, versus if I become the treasurer for the church, now I'm managing a lot, like practically in a temporal sense, like, those kind of things, right? If you're like presidents of Mothers Forum or Fathers Forum, yeah, if I'm president of MCYM, yeah, maybe everybody's like my friend at some level, right? Versus if I'm president of like Fathers Forum, Mothers Forum, yeah, I might not know the people that are there or know them like at a very superficial level. So I think whatever skill sets and whatever faith you've developed in MCYM, I think functioning at like a church level, it probably forces you to enhance like those qualities further. That's what I would say.
That is beautiful. I think something Liz Session said is generations, right? Handing this off to someone who's accountable and can take, let's say, the choir or some other ministry in the church forward, right? I think that question really begs the question of youth, right? That are coming up in the church. How do we inspire them, right? How do we inspire them? How do we keep this ministry going, right? We have leadership coming. We have a lot of these events that we're doing to kind of allow kids and the youth to come together and develop strategies to move the church forward, right? So you guys did a very good job talking about leadership responsibilities, and the fact that if you're not taking that responsibility, no one else is going to take that responsibility, right? So stepping in to take that responsibility is one thing, and moving that forward and teaching others, inspiring others, especially people like me. Like, I'm 21, I want to learn from you guys. I want to have this opportunity to take on advice. That's why I'll come by nearby and talk to you guys. How do you do this? How do you do that? Like, what was even doing this podcast is an example for that. Is us trying to make this platform so that a lot of people could hear your story and maybe inspire other people across the other parishes to do great things, just as you guys are doing and what you have done so far. So my next question is, I think it's very personal, very near and dear to me, is what is your advice to the MCYM youth coming up in the church, right? People like me, people who are younger than me, or Aaron, older than you. Right. So anyone could.
I'll go. I mean, it's really simple. I think the culture here, and not the Indian culture, but the American culture, is what do I get out of everything? And I think it goes back to that servant mentality of, even if I'm getting something, how can I bring it back to my church, bring it back to the people that I know, bring it back to my family, right? It's like whatever you learn, don't just keep that with you. Be able to share that on different levels with all the different people you come in contact with. That's pretty much it.
I think it goes back to what we had talked about, that none of us are qualified, right? The Lord qualifies us. Binu and I talked about this a lot when I was growing up, and I would always say, "Oh, I'm not worthy to do this. I'm not," and he would be like, "Are any of us worthy? Like, nobody's worthy. The Pope probably feels like he's not worthy, right?" And so, even in our unworthiness, the Lord will use us in different ways. And we're not perfect. We're flawed people, and we all have areas that we need to grow. But the Lord sees us as a whole. He sees all the flaws. He knows before we've even messed up, right? So like, don't let that be a limitation to allowing yourself to be used in the way that the Lord wants to use you, and to serve in a way that the Lord wants you to serve, because that'll really hinder such beauty and growth and development. And you're going to take a gift away from the church that the church didn't even get a chance to see if you don't give yourself that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, first things, a couple of things. So first things would be, you should have like a servant leadership. You know, always ask yourself, who are you doing it for? Why are you doing it? If you're stressed out doing something, and then it might be because you're not doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it for God, you're doing it for yourself. You know, so that's first and foremost. Second thing is to always kind of nourish yourself spiritually, because you cannot give if you don't feed ourselves spiritually what we need. Whether that be, going to adoration, spending time in the front of the Blessed Sacrament, going to retreats, kind of finding different ways to kind of help ourselves grow spiritually, right? And then lastly, find a place where you can grow. Find a place where you can actually lead others, inspire others. Find a place and if you're not sure what that is, ask your fellow friends within the church, within the youth group to say, hey, what am I really good at? What do you see in me that I can probably do here in this church or within even nationally? What do you see that I can do that I'm really talented at? What are the skills that you see in me? And then, and then figure out how you can utilize those. Or if there's other things that maybe you can grow and develop, find ways to kind of improve those skills, right? But like, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. I mean, what can you do?
So I would say vigilance. I think Lisa, I think you're the one that said like life happens, right? Sometimes things happen that you don't plan, or you plan for something and it didn't happen, right? And then I think we start off the podcast with stuff relative to the community. I want positions, I want this or that, right? I think maybe for like some youth and stuff, yeah, sometimes things don't go the way they want or their families want it, right? Or something happens that their families didn't want to happen, right? So then the question becomes, well, what do I, now what? Now what do I do, right? So I think relative to us, talking to us here, I think, the family spirit is here or was here back then, right? So regardless of what happens in your life or what didn't happen in your life, you think to yourself, yeah, this happened or this didn't happen. What do I do? Hopefully like everybody here, like your Achans and your fellow community members, we hope like, okay, well, maybe, if that didn't happen, I'll just come back and, participate in Kurbana or, participate in adoration, those kind of things, right? Because that's not something unique to other people, to yourself and not to others. All of us sitting here have had those like life experiences, right? Like, oh wow, I wanted this to happen, it didn't happen, or I didn't want that to happen, but wow, look, that happened, right? So now I have to decide what I want to do, and I think the hope is that we stay within our Malankara Catholic faith, or we look to that faith to help us get through that. And then maybe, God willing, one day you look back and you're like, oh wow, that was a difficult time, but because I stayed through that, I'm part of this. Whatever that is. All of us have our own like unique experiences of what's happened or what's not happened, those kind of things, right? So I would say vigilance, just trying to stay the course as best as you can. And then because of our faith, we're not going to, and then then you go to confession and you tell the priest, this is what I did or didn't do or whatever, and then you're absolved, and then okay, hey, you're back in. You're back in. Yeah. You get the nod from the bouncer. Okay, you can come in now.
Beautiful, beautiful words from all y'all. Yeah, I mean, I just think back to just the way that we kind of just approached life in general, with the way that we are involved in MCYM and things like that. And just bringing me to this point, talking to y'all, Chachins and Chechis. For those of you who don't fully understand, I think we've explained in previous episodes, like Chachins and Chechis is basically referring to older brothers and older sisters, right? And every time I say it and I'm getting to talk to y'all now, it's a special thing because it really is family, right? It really very much is the aspect that we feel like we are a family with each other, that we can come to you guys whenever we feel like there is some kind of issue or concern, not just within our church, but in our lives and, everything in between. And so I really want to just thank you all for your time here tonight, or today, actually, not yet. It's a really special time that we've had together, really talked through a lot, especially in terms of history, but really in terms of how to move forward and really grow in our church and especially for our youth. Thank you all for listening and watching, and continue to, engage with us. Please comment or, let us know how we're doing, and please reach out to your local Chachins and Chachis as well. I know they'd love to talk to you, and just like we fostered this kind of conversation, I hope you guys are able to do that at home as well. And please share those and engage that with your community, because I know your community would really appreciate those as well. So everyone, thank y'all.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Tea with Thomas. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our channel for more conversations. If you'd like to help support us, check out the links in the description.
If you have any questions, comments, or topics you would like for us to talk about, please feel free to put them in the comments below. We would love to hear from you guys.
And for more behind the scenes content and updates, follow us on our Instagram at Tea with Thomas. Until next episode, stay curious, stay blessed, and let's continue to share our Catholic voices and ideas to this world. May the good Lord bless you all. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.